Hello from Gardening at Douentza here in Ireland. And here we have it on this miserable wet February day. We have all of my orchids in flower in February. So I've brought all my orchids in flower here and put them on this table. And in just a few moments we're going to go through and have a look at each and every one of them, and I'll give you some notes on culture and the basic history of what's been happening with that particular orchid since you last saw it. And I think I have a few nice things to show you at this time of year, so I hope you'll enjoy this little video and give it the thumbs up as a result. Okay, let's get right down to it. Now it's time to decide where I'm going to start and get dug into these orchids. And I suppose the thing that's really driving me or drawing me is over on my left there, because the scent from that white Cattleya is absolutely overwhelming. Not overwhelming, but really, really nice. And it's certainly oozing out from that part of the kitchen and filling the whole room. So I'm drawn over here to Cattleya Bob Betts. And we are just going to have a little look at it now. Now you last saw this in my Cattleya spikes video, and at that point in time you saw that this particular orchid had a darkness in the sheath, which of course is good news and means that flowers are on the way. But there's been a bit of drama since then and the drama revolved around finding a slug in the mix. And I only found a slug in the mix because one of the buds started to get nibbled. Anyway, I got the blighter and the flowers have opened, but you can see there's such ever so slight damage here from the nibbling that slug did before I got a chance to get him. And I thought this particular flower was unscathed, that he hadn't nibbled this bud at all, but I do see these little holes here, so yeah, I guess. But it could have been a lot worse. Now, the bad news, of course, is that the second sheath seems to have dried up. And if we look down here, this is the second sheath, and you can see that there's a bud in there. It's hard coming in my own light, but there is a bud in there. So there's still a chance that that will, you know, manage to come out and produce flowers, but the fact that the sheath itself has dried off isn't a particularly good sign. So this is Cattleya Bob Betts, one of the older Cattleyas in my collection I've had for many years, and those who've followed the channel for a long time will have seen it pop up again and again in Orchids in Bloom videos at this time of year, because it really is quite a reliable flower. Now, what sometimes happens, certainly if you get more than two flowers together, is that they kind of open on top of each other, as these ones are doing here, but it's not so bad this year. I mean, I could tolerate that. It wouldn't bother me too much. And certainly for the beautiful creamy whiteness, it's not creamy whiteness, it's very pure white, and for the fantastic scent, it's certainly worthwhile. And there we go, having just a look into that lip. Oh, yeah, a nice plant, quite a substantial plant, as you can see. So I was looking forward to having two spikes, but well, it seems that it is not to be. Okay, moving across now, and it's not an orchid, of course, but this Hippeastrum that you saw me buy back in winter has really, really proved worthwhile for the €1.99 I paid for it. This is the second spike that has flowered, and we're just coming near the end of the flowering of the second spike, but they really are magnificent blooms. Perhaps it's Hippeastrum Clown, as someone suggested to me, but I'm not altogether sure. You know, the only problem with Hippeastrums really is that they're so darn cheap. If these plants cost like €100, if bulbs cost €100 and they were rare, then everybody would flock to buy them and would certainly have no qualms about paying €100 for something as magnificent as this. But the fact that they're so cheap and they're so ubiquitous at Christmas time kind of devalues them. And that's such a shame. Gorgeous, gorgeous plants. And in terms of what's coming next, I may actually have some more spikes coming there, or they may be just leaves. But anyway, even if they are just leaves, it's certainly earned its place in my collection. Okay, so leaving the Hippeastrum behind, and over here we have Odontoglossum Nippon. Nippon as in Japan, and this one has flowered for ever such a long time, and what glorious flowers it has too. Let's just get round here so we can get a better look. Now the first one dropped today, but this has flowered non-stop since I bought it at Johnstown Garden Centre at our get-together in January, near the beginning of January. So it's a really, really good one. Beautifully scented as well. And these flowers, I love these kind of odontoglossum types. So, so pretty. And, you know, big enough flowers as well. They're not tiny, not by any stretch of the imagination. So this one has done so well. And of course, this plant is from Inca Orchids in the Netherlands, kind of wholesaler. And they provide orchids to many of the garden centres, many of the upmarket garden centres here in Ireland. And there we go. I'll link to that video at the end where I was in Johnstown and picked up this glorious plant. Nearly had to fight my friend for it, but it's a good one. Very pleased with it. Okay, so if we leave that beside, I suppose I might show you something a bit smaller now, and I will show you the only Dendrobium that I currently have in flower, and it's this one here. Dendrobium Ellen. Now, anyone who grows Dendrobium kingianum can see from looking at this one that it really has strong kingianum roots, and in fact kingianum is one of the parents for this particular cross. And tetragonum, I think. I bought this one in Madeira when I went there 3 years ago, I think. Came back with this among other plants, and yeah, it's kind of it's not a showstopper like Cattleya Bob Betts is. You know, you're not going to walk into the room and say, "Oh, what's that glorious smell? Oh my God, what's that vision over there in the corner?" As you're going to do with Bob Betts. But I suppose it's one for the more cultured palate, and certainly anybody who likes dendrobiums and likes the dendrobiums that don't do that dry rest thing, then this one might be one for you to consider. And we've got 2 spikes down here as well, as you can see. And oh, I thought I had a third one, but it seems I was just hallucinating. They're very pretty flowers and pink and white tinges. I like the elegant shape of them. And of course they've got those classic dendrobium buds before they open. I can't describe it. I suppose like a bent sausage, but it really is very distinctive. And if the shape of the plant doesn't tell you it's a dendrobium, then the shape of the buds definitely will. And just over here we have the hybrid Phalaenopsis that is currently in flower for me. And this is giving me a very pretty and long spike, which has lasted a very long time, as do, well, most Phalaenopsis. And this one has a really interesting lip with touches of yellow and green in there. Very, very pretty. And more remarkably, from my point of view, is the back of the flowers, which has a pinkish tinge. Now, can we see that there? Let me see, if we move around here, we can see, let's see, perhaps on the back of that petal. Whoa, this is tricky. Whereas if you were in my kitchen right beside me, you'd see this in an instant. We also have extra lights focused on us, which is kind of washing out the flowers. But if we move down here, then let's see, just behind that one there, can you see the pinkish tinge? Yeah, on the back of that petal, which is all very pretty. And you know what they remind me of? They remind me of those spring flowering anemones. And there was one that won the Chelsea Plant of the Year a few years back, which had bluish tinge on the back of the petals. And the shape really was very similar to this particular Phalaenopsis, I think. So yeah, anyway, it's very pretty, and I don't have many Phalaenopsis in my collection, but what I will say is that the ones that are in my collection really do have to earn their keep, and this one is doing well so far. Yep. Okay, so where will we go now? I suppose we might turn to the elephant in the room over there, which is of course a terrible description for a beautiful giant Angraecum. Now, somebody recently said that this was the Cespedale one, the Darwin orchid, the one that he based his hypothesis on. So Darwin said that if a plant exists in nature that has a very difficult way to be pollinated, then it must be that an insect exists to pollinate it. And if we look back here, the spur at the back of the plant, that is where the animal's tongue must reach down to actually pollinate this plant. And Darwin conjectured that such an animal must exist. I think he thought it was a bird, but only after he died, of course, they discovered this moth that comes out at night and is attracted by the Angraecum's night scent, because these plants from Madagascar really are night scented. And it has this amazing long tongue. And whenever anybody who's not interested in orchids comes into my kitchen, I bore them with this story, including teenage boys that my son brings home. And they're always mildly interested. So yeah, I think it's good. There's laughing going on in the background here now because everybody knows it's the truth. Anyway, this is not the species Angraecum. This is actually Crestwood, a Crestwood one, and you'll see the name going up on the screen. And this year I only have one flower. I think I had more before, but it's a good big one. See, big white waxy flowers. Now these really are creamy yellow, as opposed to Bob Betts, which is white, and even the Phalaenopsis, which is perhaps a less strong white, but certainly not as creamy as this Angraecum. And if you touch it, waxy is really the word that comes to mind. It's not something that you could break easily, certainly not soft. It's as if it had been coated in, well, I suppose a layer of wax. And it's a very pretty flower. And it's very nice to have something unusual like this in your collection that you know, that you can, well, bore teenagers with. There's the spur, and this is the plant, and I believe Angraecum is very closely akin to Vanda, if not in the Vandaceous alliance, and you can see that from the way it grows. I mean, it's like a potted Vanda really, and it has these aerial roots. Unfortunately, one of them got broken here, and it lives in my son's bedroom, so I wonder who I can blame for that. Yeah, that one, it's still connected by a thread. I think it's still greening up when I water it, so it still has use. But yeah, so it's doing quite well, and hopefully next year we'll have more flowers. Wouldn't that be great? Because everybody wants a great big slap you about the face Angraecum in their connection. Well, I certainly do anyway. Okay, so what else have we got? Just a few more to talk about. So we'll move down here on the table and move in here and look at the flowers on this species Phalaenopsis. Now this is Phalaenopsis equestris. Okay, I think that's it. And Bumblebee gave me this when she visited before. I'm linking above to Bumblebee's channel. She's got a lovely YouTube orchid channel, and this little baby has 2 blooms at the moment, and really cute. Look how small it is, Small little plant. I'm really delighted with this. And it is flanked also by Phalaenopsis pallens, who comes from Italy. Well, I don't mean the plant comes from Italy, but this particular one does, because it was given to me by Alberto, and it is a beauty, really, really beauty with those brown markings. Now, I had 2 flowers for the longest time, but one has just dropped, but you can see there's another bud behind forming, and I think a third one there. So whether all 3 will be in flower at the same time, I don't know. And over the other side we have another stem, which isn't doing anything very sensible at the moment. But this one is very nice markings. And just while we're in the neighbourhood, my very sad looking Promenaea, but it does have 1 bud, which I've been waiting to open for a long time, but it hasn't. Promenaea, oh blimey, really can't get the hang of this plant at all. I've had it for a few years. It was sent to me from Romania, and it flowered for me before, and then it kind of went downhill, and then this time last year I repotted it and it's done better. And better in terms of it's still lost a lot of leaves, but it has leaves at the moment and it has a bud, so that's good in my books, and I look forward to the yellow flowers before too long. Come on, open. No, it doesn't want to. And the final plant in bloom I want to show you today is this Laeliocattleya Coastal Sunrise, which I've had in my collection for many years. And it's a bit of a sad blooming this year because I have 1 flower there and I have another bud behind, but you can see what's happened. The spike has bent. The spike was growing under the grow light, and it went up, and then suddenly it decided, no, it didn't want to live, and it kind of collapsed on itself, and I thought, well, that's it. And actually, most of the buds that were on this flower did blast, but 1 survived. So I have 1 bloom there, and then we have another spike here, which is opening, and the same thing. The spike just kind of bent over. Now I'm assuming this is to a high intensity of light that the plant isn't used to, and as a result I took it out of from underneath the grow light. And just before we finish this video, I'll give you a brief look at my grow light and what I've done to combat this burning of plants which I've encountered. Okay, so I think we're going to go upstairs now, just leave these plants here in my kitchen and take a look at the solution to the burning problem. And here we have my plants on the table. There's that euphorbia that's drying out, and above are the lights, and I've covered them in fleece. Now the fleece isn't close enough that there's any danger of fire, and in fact the bulb itself doesn't generate a lot of heat, so I think it's quite safe. But yeah, so basically to every problem there's a solution. And that just about brings me to the end of this video, but I would like to remind you that there's still a chance to buy my book, Journal of an Irish Garden, and if you don't own one already, you really should, because very soon I'm going to start our competition, whereby I have a super prize, international prize, and it will be won by he or she who correctly answers a couple of questions about the book. So basically this is a competition for loyal subscribers, and you know, so very often I think competitions are pitched to everyone and to bring new subscribers in, but I wanted to do something a bit different and to just reward those who really have been so good to me over the years of this channel. Right, so link to where you can purchase that book below, but you need to get it and you need to start reading soon. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks very much for watching, and see you all again soon. Bye.